Rajashree is currently the Vice President and leads the vocational skilling vertical at Quess Corp. She is a seasoned business leader with 25 years of experience in research-driven consulting and developing growth strategies for Indian market. With experience in consulting across functional areas of marketing, customer support, distribution, and partnership programs, Rajashree has built high-performing teams and successfully mentored future business leaders. Welcome, Rajashree. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Dhruti. Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you for taking the time today. So, Rajashree, first, right off the bat, would love to understand what has your journey been like so far?
So I think started my career way back in 1994. So it's been over 25 years now. I started out with a market research organization of Tarasena Erickson, and then moved on to Feedback Business Consulting. Feedback Business Consulting is a strategic consulting firm specializing in market research in the B2B space. So I've worked in the area of go-to-market strategy, strategic consulting, advisory services, and essentially helped companies enter Indian markets. It's been a very India market-focused business consulting services that I was attached with. So, and post 25 years at Feedback, I actually pivoted to the social sector and, I worked with LabourNet for 2 years and then moved on to Quess Corp, really the skilling vertical.
Great. That's been quite a journey at your ends. And I'm sure, 25 years is such a magnificent period. You've seen the ups and downs. And, we always talk about the ups that we've had. But if I had to ask you, Rajashree, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in the journey that you've had?
Okay, so let me start out, right? Today we are with, we are in the Google era, but I worked in market research, nuts and bolts on the field when there was no data available on the Indian market. So I've been to places and, which probably many of the kids today would not be going to. In terms of challenges, of course, I think it was about prioritizing what you want, choosing one over the other. That's something which I think all of us do it at some point or the other. And probably, challenges in terms of what career I wanted. See, career was always there for me. I think probably I made a lot of choice in the roles that I took, right? Because I had family as well. So probably I focused more on, jobs, roles that give me flexibility to work from home or, flexibility with time over maybe completely client-facing roles. While I was market-focused and, worked with organizations, but I didn't take up roles which involved extensive traveling while I did domestic traveling, but maybe somewhere I gave up that. So that's something that was a challenge that I felt. But then, of course, the others are regular, which everybody faces, right? You have to manage house, manage work, career. That's about it. Nothing much, nothing specific. I think it all, when you're going through it, it feels very difficult. But now when you look back, you think, okay, it was not that bad at all. It was all fine.
And it's also who we are surrounded by, right? We are
absolutely. So, I had probably I am from a privileged background in terms I had support from both my family, both maternal and, the in-law side, very supportive husband. And I think I also surrounded myself with friends, who I used as a sounding board. They were very rational, but they also gave me a lot of emotive support. And it was essentially a high trust network, and I had great mentors with people who I was working with in Feedback and subsequently in the other organizations. I think I had great bosses and, colleagues who I could build, a lot of connect, if I might say so. So I could lean on them, right, whenever I need. So.
Absolutely. And we've been leaning in even before Sheryl Sandberg came up with the book. And I think we kind of lean on to each other for support in that sense.
That's right.
One of the very important facts that you stated, Rajashree, and for me personally also, it's been a huge, it's made a huge difference in my life, is having a mentor. So my question to you is, how did you go about finding the right mentor? Was it serendipity, or was it a very conscious effort, or something else?
I think initially it was serendipity. And I think I was lucky enough to have worked with two great people when I started out working with feedback. And I think willy-nilly I made them as my role models, right? I looked up to them and I realized there were a lot of learnings that were happening, when you start working with them on a day-to-day basis on how they manage to compartmentalize both professional and personal life, how to deal with issues, problems, break it down, solve it. I think I was just lucky. I mean, see, today we talk so much about mentoring and, reverse mentoring and all of that. But something, it just happened to me, to have met such great people. And then probably I chose to, work with them closely, try to imbibe some of their practices. And I think that has helped me.
Absolutely. And is it safe to assume that these were women mentors that you had in your life, or was it men and women? How was it? Because
it was men and women.
Balance. Okay. So it was both men and women who mentored you in that sense.
Yeah, I think what is important, Dhruti, is I think, you tend to see there are different people around you, right? And you probably need to pick up those things that you want to learn, which you admire in somebody, and you try and see how can you actually learn from those, right? So I think men and women were great mentors in different aspects. I mean, there are things that I would probably, sound them out on some things. To somebody else, I would sound on some other aspect and topic. And I think, like you said, I was privileged enough to have a great team of people around me.
That's amazing. And I think support system, if you have the right support system in place, that's half the battle won.
Yes. But the other thing is, I think you also have to make that little effort.
Of course. Yes.
What happens is in women, especially, we tend to have a lot of inhibitions. You worry a lot more before you ask those questions. And I feel that, I think I asked it outright, so it is, I was probably very, very frank, candid, had candid conversations with them, put out what issues I was facing with, how I could deal with it. So unless you approach somebody, nobody can second guess you. You have to reach out to people. Some might help you, some might not help you, but that's fine. If you don't reach out, there is no way somebody can actually help you, guide you, support you, or maintain, right? Even be it your spouse. I mean, there is only that much they can just guess or, give you support. But I think you have to ask those questions. And I think as women, I think we tend to think 25 times before we ask anything.
I completely agree and resonate with that, because I've had so many, women around me who are so hesitant to ask for help. It's like we want to do it all. And personally speaking, I'm not a big fan of the image where a woman is shown with 10 hands. Well, we don't. Yeah, you need 10 people around you maybe, and you need to be asking for that support that you're looking for, because nobody can read your mind. You have to speak up. And, I love the point that you made. You have to be a little bit bold in that sense and reach out rather than assuming that people are going to take notice of your plight if you're in one and help you out, right? So I think sometimes you just need to take the first step.
Yeah, and I think we overthink things.
I cannot agree more. Yes, we do.
And you're always worried, what will they think? What are they going to say if I ask this? Is it going to be a stupid question? So I think there's nothing stupid, right? It is what your journey, what you're going through is different from what somebody else is going through. And at least when I look back, I think I could have reached out more. Dhruti, while I had great people, mentors to learn from, I wish I could have reached out more, because I always set the bar high for myself. Honestly, Dhruti, when you say that, do women have 10 hands? But I think I wanted to manage it all myself. But yes, there was that unwavering support and, that helped me along. And yeah.
Absolutely. And
I'm sure I made mistakes all along. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, yeah. That's totally fine. I think making mistakes is one of the ways to keep moving forward, because and this is my personal belief, it's when we make mistakes is when we are able to take that pause and reflect. And once you reflect is when you're able to figure out there are certain things, even in those mistakes, that you've done right. And then there are other points in life where you messed it up completely. But hey, guess what? You messed it up because maybe you took a risk. And I think that's what, and that's what I was getting at for you as well. That you said that you kept moving forward and you had the support system, but I'm sure you took some risks as well. And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, yeah, there were risks that I took. I mean, I took when I, after 25 years in strategic consulting, trust me, the biggest, and with one organization on that, I think moving completely, pivoting to social sector, workforce skilling, I mean, was a very, very big risk, if you ask me. That probably was the biggest change in my career because, when you reach that, you're in your late 40s and you say, oh my God, I'm changing my jobs now. Will I be able to adjust? How will I make the change? You have a younger crowd out there. How will you blend in? How will you perform? You have to prove yourself all over again. I think that was my biggest risk, and probably I stressed myself out and I stressed people around me as well the first few months, but then I think it all worked out well. See, it's a lot in the mind, right? A lot in the mind that you think, oh my God, how am I going to do it? Will I be able to do it? What will people think? And and for me, I have been my greatest critic. I mean, people used to say, why don't you go easy on yourself? I think that sort of added a lot more pressure and therefore increased my sense of risk. But probably when I look back now, it was not that bad.
Absolutely. And I can hear it, right? There was this thing around maybe gender, maybe generation, maybe domain expertise. Like there were risks that you were taking at every level without realizing it. When we are in the midst of it, sometimes we don't see it that way, but people around us take notice of it, right? And as you rightly pointed out, people would be like, why are you being so harsh on yourself? Or why are you being so tough on yourself? But there is an old saying, right? That the gold is able to take its shape only when it's put in the heat. And I think that's what all of us sometimes need to do is just put ourselves out there. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? We're going to fall flat on our faces. Guess what? People don't look at us as much as we think they're looking at us. It's just the mirror that in front of ourselves. And we are wondering, oh my God, the entire world is looking. What's going to happen now? You have to take those risks and, not worry about the naysayers. You want your supporters, not the people who are your critics, right? So I think that plays a huge role as well, as does the mindset.
Absolutely. Dhruti, I mean, I think you made a point about, gender and, generation. Okay, so there are two things that I just wanted to point out that, probably, I mean, I work with a boutique consulting firm at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And, today we talk about DEI policies, but I don't think it was always there. I was lucky enough to work in an organization which empowered women, bosses who believed that women are the best resources that you could have because they're committed, dedicated, and, very, very efficient. It always felt that the organization always had a DEI policy, though it was not stated. But, like I said, I was probably the lucky and I have to count my blessings to have worked in such an organization where there was empowerment and there was no discrimination at all.
Amazing. And I think it does serve its purpose until it's overdone. That's the way I always look at policies and everything. I think we just need to be a little bit more mindful and conscious of how we are dealing with things. But for me, the bigger point in everything that you've been saying right now is around the mindset. What kind of mindset do you have? Are you, it's great to be your own critic as long as it is propelling you forward, right? Mm-hmm. The moment I think it starts dragging you down is when you've taken it a bit too far.
Yeah, that's right. So while I say I'm a critic, I set a high standard for myself, and I do that for my teams as well. But the key difference here is that if I expect something from somebody, only when I can do it as well. So if I say my team has to perform, I'm working alongside them, to achieve their goals or whatever it is. And You're right. I mean, I think, see, unless we set our own limits. So there is no limit. I mean, you have to start pushing the boundaries. You have to push yourself to know what is it that you can achieve. And I think I've always believed in it. And helped me. I mean, so when you set those bars higher, you actually are continuously learning, pushing forward. You have a high level of satisfaction. And when you have a high level of satisfaction, which leads to happiness. And if you are happy, everybody else around you is happy. Trust me. You have to be happy with yourself, satisfied with yourself, and everything else is fine.
So we always say this in coaching, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. I think it's very important that you are able to, first treat yourself with respect if you are expecting respect from others. Start trusting yourself a little bit if you want others to trust you, right? So it's what you want people to do around you. You first need to start doing it for yourself. You want to be taken seriously, take yourself a little bit seriously, have fun once in a while, but don't be a clown out there. Like a lot of people do that. They're like, and I've seen that, the self-deprecating humor is a great way to go about it. But again, how far are we taking it? I think that really makes all the difference. So Rajashree, in all the years you've been in, out there in the world and killing it, have you had any mantras of success?
Okay, I think there are. So perseverance is what I would put it as, Dhruti. So if I take up something or I pick up something, I give it my 100%, 150%. And I just, I don't give it up. I work at it. And I think I see it through. I think perseverance is something that has got me here. And the second thing is about, the continuous learning. I have always, when I was in consulting, of course, I was learning the different things. I mean, we were cutting across different industry sectors. So there was a continuous learning happening. But in addition to that, at a personal level, I've always tried to see how I could upskill myself to stay in tune with the current time. So, if it's some courses that I needed to do, I would pick them up and do it. And, earlier we spoke about some generation thing. I mean, I love working with young people because I think there is so much that you can learn out there. I think their energy is infectious and you get to learn a lot of things. So, I mean, I love working with people and teams, and therefore, all of this comes back. So I think these are my two mantras, right? One is perseverance and continuous learning.
Yeah. And
there's so much to learn out there.
Absolutely. And I think it's all about keeping yourself relevant. I have a question for you over there, because I've heard a lot of different opinions around this, right? When you say continuous learning, do you typically stick to your field of expertise, or do you, kind of broad stroke? How does it work for you?
So it's a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talked about continuous learning, of course, of industries, was basically when you start consulting in different industries, you actually need to understand how that industry operates, the entire ecosystem. So there is a learning that happens. But on the functional side, I've tried to pick up things which I felt that I was not good at, but would help me in my role, in my job, in my career. And the second thing was also about these new technologies that were coming in, just to understand, to get a feel. See, I wouldn't say that by learning 1 or 2 years, I become an expert, but I think it is to build appreciation, to understand what people are doing, how does it impact businesses and things like that.
Absolutely. So it is going a little bit more horizontal rather than just vertical, right? Which would
yes.
It's important to know about different aspects as well of the work that you do. I think that's
right. And as a business leader, you need to have more an overall perspective.
You do.
So
yeah,
you need to you don't think you have.
And I say this for entrepreneurs as well. When you scale, you don't have to be the expert at everything. You just need to hire a team of experts and lead them. And I think as a leader, that's what you've been doing all this time as well. So by the continuous learning, you keep yourself relevant, understand different aspects of the job that you have. I think that's what really keeps you going. And you stay up to date. You stay on top of things just like that. Brilliant. So as a Thai charter member, Rajashree, is there if there is one message that you would want to give to aspiring or established entrepreneurs, or maybe you can answer it in two forms, one for aspiring, one for established entrepreneurs, what would that be? If there's one message.
I think for aspiring entrepreneurs, I think basically reach out. There are so many people with a wealth of expertise and knowledge, and who are willing to spend time. I mean, the Thai charter members, there's so many people out there who can support you, give you ideas, can be your sounding board. I think that is one thing I feel that they should reach out. For established entrepreneurs, I think basically, I think what they need to understand is what is it that they want? I mean, do they want scale? Do they want to go deep down into their business? What is it that they're looking for? And then probably tap into those resources, networks that I has.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rajashree. It's been a very interesting and very enlightening conversation. Such beautiful points made. For me, what really stood out in the conversation, in the short conversation that we had, was that, be bold. And I think that's one of the messages that you're giving to our aspiring entrepreneurs as well, is that reach out, don't hesitate from asking for help, especially our women entrepreneurs, right? Sometimes we just keep making assumptions. As you said, we think a lot more and that stops us in our tracks. Any other parting thoughts, Rajashree?
I think the journey has just begun. I've got miles to go.
Yes.
So much more to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhruti.
All right. Bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.